Hello, you're listening to Nif, Manasi and Asia on Reasoning with Prejudice. In this podcast, we'll entertain you as we debate on topics that are sometimes meaningful, sometimes lighthearted, but always interesting. And you don't even have to give us a penny for our thoughts.
So, this week's topic is, was Thanos right? And for those of you who don't know, Thanos is the villain in the movie Avengers Infinity War. Just a disclaimer though, this podcast will contain spoilers for that movie.
Who is Thanos? Like, who is he? All I know is he's green.
He's not green,
He's
actually purple.
Oh, is that the Hulk? Okay. Is he the one with the weird chin? Like the rebutted chin?
So basically, his backstory is that he was from this planet and they were running out of resources and people were suffering. They didn't have enough to eat. They were in poverty. And he proposed a solution that half of the population should be destroyed. And that would leave the other half able to live with whatever they need and be happy. And they didn't listen to him. And now they're all dead because all the resources got used up and everything went to crap. So Thanos' lifelong journey is to collect enough power so he can destroy half of all beings in the universe as a kindness, so that the other half can thrive in their in all the resources that their planets have.
So half the population is killed randomly.
Randomly?
Yeah.
I mean, that's good in one way, unless, like, instead of picking up the poor people.
Okay, I guess we're going to focus on the random bit instead of the main. The random bit is a bit rocky because what if all the doctors are killed? What if all the teachers are killed? What if all the female are killed?
You know, in The Good Place, how they have a merit-based system. What if they make some sort of, like, that system and, I don't know, pick out the bad guys and the good guys and then kill off the bad guys because the good guys deserve to live if they're killing anyone at all.
That is just unfair, though. You're weighing someone's life value based on their actions, whereas it's their life to live.
Yeah, like, the whole part of killing is unfair as it is, but if you're gonna do it anyway, then might as well.
Yes, but how do you propose that we measure how good a person is? How many convictions they have?
What about wrongly convicted people? People like the justice system, is kind of flawed from what we've seen, kind of in the past couple of, I guess, months. Yeah. So, is it really fair?
And what about the people who are not convicted at all, who have done murders?
I think the whole idea is unfair as it is. Like, who is Thanos? Is he some sort of, like, what does he know? Who is he to decide?
Yeah, he thinks mass killing is a necessary evil to prevent global catastrophe.
Yeah, but who is he? Like, what right does he have?
He doesn't have a right. He's just doing it because he thinks that people will be grateful for him. Like, maybe not at first, but he thinks that once they realize that they have, like, everything that they need to live happily, that they'll, like, thank him for doing this.
Even the dead people.
Well, obviously not the dead people.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for killing me. It's really nice down here.
No, obviously not. But I think he thinks it's good, and I'm not telling that he's right. I'm not comparing to all the good people out there, but all the noble characters like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi, they did what they thought was good. So Thanos is doing what he thought was good.
Yeah, that's why it's like really hard to hate him, because most villains, they're like, they do stuff for power or for, but his like goal is for like to better the universe.
Yeah.
So, when he's killing people, does that include him?
Yeah. So basically he has this gauntlet, right? So it's basically like a big gloves with 4 really powerful stones, and when he snaps his fingers, randomly half the population would die. he is in the mix. He could die. His daughter could die. He knows this. And so basically, I kind of see his perspective in the sense that human overpopulation is the cause of pandemics such as like the COVID-19 and the lack of protection, as in, so if there are more people, there's more like serial killers, and there's more like chance of us not being able to control the population. There's more starvation. There's lack of clean water. All this happens because of population. And maybe killing off the half the population is a small sacrifice to saving like everyone.
Okay, but like most developed countries, their populations are kind of like, if you look at the graph, it's kind of plateauing now because it's like steadying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not like exponential. It's not like so it's not actually that much of a problem now on Earth anyway.
But that is with developed countries. Developing nations and undeveloped countries, that's where the like population is on the rise. People have 5 kids, 7 kids, 10 kids without like protection because they don't know what safe sex means.
Yeah, well, not just that, it's also because child mortality is quite high and they need a bigger chance of one of their children surviving.
That's the case with underdeveloped countries, but with developing countries like Brazil and India, the hospital system is pretty good, if you ask me, but then the population is still on the rise because people still have kids.
Yeah.
I think,
but
yeah,
killing seems like the easy solution. Like, I don't know if he thinks that, okay, we'll just kill half the population and everything will be restored back to normal. But every action has its own consequence. This could lead to wars. Like, what if, I don't know, 75% of one country dies out and then another country, there's like almost 100% still there, and then they're trying to overtake them. It's the greed, the human greed is not going to end. So it won't really solve anything. No one's gonna like distribute all the resources happily. Like, you take this and you give me this. Like, there's not gonna be any sharing. It's still gonna be a fight for survival.
Well, I think there'll be more sharing than there is right now.
I think like lives would be better because I was reading about I don't want to sound like a know-it-all, but I was reading about the Black Plague, and when it like ended, the cost of like food and the cost of property, they all went down because they were like less valuable, like there were less demand, and like more people could have jobs and more people had like there was just more opportunities for everyone.
Another thing is, like, what Manasi said is an easy thing to do. It's definitely not an easy thing to do, killing off the half the population.
No,
especially for Thanos, because he has people he loves as well.
I didn't mean easy as in like it's, I don't know, emotionally easy to do, but it's a simple step to take. Do you see what I mean? Like, killing off people is a snap decision. Like, even though it takes a lot of emotional kind of decision making, it's just a step, and once you do it, it's over. So is it right to take the easier path and, just abandon your morality, or is it better to fight in a difficult way and make sure everything is fair as it can be?
Okay, I'll kind of give you an analogy for this. So, example situation, there's conjoined twins, and you either let them both live and put them both at risk, and there's no guarantee both will survive, or kill one and guarantee one's quality survival with a quality life.
I actually saw a video about this like just yesterday. There's these twins who are like 19 years old now, and they're still conjoined.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you asking me what I would do?
Yeah, if you were the mom, what would you do?
I don't know.
So, you put both at risk, and there's no guarantee both survive, or kill one, and then there's guarantee survival of one with quality life.
Sure, the logic stands, but I would never want to have the blood on my hands, and I wouldn't expect anyone else to do it either.
So, as I've watched many medical shows on this, and always the doctors suggest that you kill one child to save the other. So for the guaranteed survival of one, for the quality life that the other one would lead. And I would do that if I had 2 kids as well. I would, even if the conjoined twins survive, right? They're gonna have a pretty bad life. It's a small sacrifice you pay. If I say I want both the kids to survive and both end up dying, you would blame yourself for the rest of your life.
But you know, in Good Place, how there was that train analogy,
Yeah.
that deciding to kill someone versus hoping that they live and they accidentally die are two different things. It's like it's going to eat at your conscience if you like decide that, okay, this kid is going to die because I've made that decision and I'm not even gonna let it have like 1% chance of survival. Isn't that worse?
Yeah, maybe, but then I think at that point I would have to be a little selfless. I have to put one.
No, but aren't you being selfish here though? Because you want one person to live.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Isn't that better than risking both lives?
Isn't it better to let it happen like it's supposed to happen than just killing one off?
I think
like instead of deciding fate.
I think it's a complicated situation. Asia, what do you think?
I wouldn't want to make that decision. And also, you said before, like, that even if they do survive, their quality of life would be bad. But you can't decide that for them. Well, actually, this is like a real story. I saw this the other day. But this doctor, he told his wife, the guy who he was in a coma, he told his wife that they're gonna take him off life support because when he does recover, he's going to be disabled and his quality of life will be really like low. And it was reposted by this disabled person, and he was like, I love my life, like, you need to give me the option of living it because that's my right. And it turns out that I do like my life, and the fact that the doctor made that decision and killed the person.
I get what you mean, but then I think when they're babies, obviously they can't decide, and you have to make the decision. You can't predict. You have to go with the facts. You have to go with the majority. You have to think for yourself. But I think in terms of Thanos, back to the original story, I think he thought if overpopulation is a disease, rather than like fighting the symptoms, like climate change, why not treat the underlying cause, which is overpopulation?
No, but you can still treat that by educating people. Like, what's to say that once you wipe out half the people, they're not going to overpopulate again?
That's true. So, Asia sent me this post ages ago. I don't know if she remembers this, but it was basically explaining whether Thanos was right. And what Thanos did would give quality life for some time, but then looking at the previous decades and centuries of how population grew, it grows exponentially, which means we're at this point where even if you kill half the population, the same population as today would be reached in 50 years. So Thanos would have just bought 50 years of time for the Earth by killing half the population.
That's a big price to pay for not a great
Yeah,
result.
exactly.
There's no democracy here. There's just one, I don't know, is he a person? There's just one guy deciding for the entire Earth, so like millions of people, that, okay, I'm just gonna kill like half of you. There's no voting, there's no, what do you think about it? Like, what is your input on it? He's like, okay, like believing that you're right to that extent, to take that big of a step, are you thinking clearly?
Okay, well, in Thanos's position, like I said, his home planet, that's what happened to his home planet. Like they all kind of starved, like it was destroyed basically. And he tested out his theory on another planet, and
they have promising,
and he talks about how all the people that live there, they're like, all they know is full bellies and like
promising future. I mean, yeah, they have promising results. And I think with your point about choice and stuff, Manasi, it makes sense in theory, and I respect that. People should have a choice. But I think you're taking it to the point where majority always wins, but that's not always the case, because when Hitler was ruling and he was ordering mass murder and he was having concentration camps set up, the majority of the people were behind him. Trump is right now the president of the United States. If you think about it, he wouldn't have been president unless the majority of the population voted for him. Giving everybody a choice does not ensure they would pick the right choice. Sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in.
How do you know it's the right choice? That's my question. Like, can't someone
Yeah,
have a
but how do you know
different
it's a
viewpoint?
But how do you know, given people the choices that you so talk about, how do you know people will make the right choice? People did not make the right choice when so many people were killed in Nazi Germany.
That is a completely different thing, because there's a clear wrong choice.
No.
That
You
is like
think
black
that?
and white.
Yeah, but you think that. People don't think that. And before, when slavery was still going on, the majority of the white people, because the white people were majority, they thought it was okay. That's why it happened.
Yeah, you can't base it off opinion. You have to,
So,
like, you're talking about democracy. It's all based on people's opinions, and people's opinions are like, they're so skewed, to be honest.
should we just abolish democracy then?
Democracy is like
yeah.
the best out of all the bad options. I don't think there's a better option, in my opinion. However, democracy is not always the answer.
It's a better answer than dictatorship,
Yeah,
which
true,
is what
true. That
which
is
is what
very true.
Thanos is doing here. Like, he's elected himself as the decider of everyone's fate.
Yeah, but then he thinks he's right. And if you ask me, I'm also on the fence that he may be right. And if you think about it, not all dictatorships are bad.
They are okay. Name me one dictatorship that's good.
Okay, you know Jhansi Rani in India. She was a queen.
She had this answer ready for you when you asked the question.
Yeah. So Jhansi Rani she was a good ruler. She didn't rule by democracy, but she was a good ruler. So was Cleopatra. So was Julius Caesar. There are some fair dictators, fair rulers, who are not necessarily bad, but they don't rule by democracy.
See, no leader is going to be completely fair. Putting all your faith into one leader, at the end of the day, all these people are human. How do you not know they're going to change their, I don't know, ideals any second?
Yeah, that's true. I'm not voting for dictatorship over democracy. I'm definitely for democracy. It has so many benefits. And I believe in power of the people. But I'm also saying that dictatorships are not all bad. Sometimes, if given the right people, it can possibly be better than democracy. But then, obviously, the right people are hard to come by, and the right people wouldn't last. Like, they're gonna die someday.
And even if they're right people, power is just corrupted. Like, once you get power, you don't know what it's going to do to that person.
I guess. So, like, I kind of like the American system in the sense that so the president can only be the president for 8 years, for like 2 consecutive terms. After that, they have to retire.
But I want Obama. Okay.
That's a different issue. For both democracy and dictatorships, it matters on the population what they feel is right, and it also depends on the ruler or the leader.
So if it's depending on the population, surely that's like a point against you, because if it's depending on the population are deciding, and that's basically the definition of democracy.
Yeah, no one chose Thanos, I'm pretty sure.
There are some supporters for Thanos.
Also, does he not doubt his ideals? Like, I don't know, I haven't seen all the movies in great depth, but is he a bit doubtful, or is he just like confident, like, I am right?
He thinks that it's his destiny. Like, I think
it is from, I think there is a conversation, I'm not too sure, where he's asked like, do not doubt yourself, or something similar along those lines, and he says he's so terrified of being wrong, because when he's it's not like he's gonna benefit from this. When he's choosing he's not choosing, when he kills random people, like half the population, he can die. his family can die. So obviously he doubts himself, but he also thinks that this is what he has to do. It's a necessary evil, he keeps saying.
Why, if it's a necessary evil, why not go with something that's a necessary good deed and solve the problem another way?
Yeah, like in the case of Thanos, he has like the ultimate power, right? And instead of killing half the universe, why not like double the resources or like improve the
Yeah.
way we live,
I
something
think
like that.
he was going on the ideology that Earth has finite resources, that Earth has a threshold for the amount of lives that it can hold.
I don't know, distribute everything equally.
That doesn't work though. Like you're talking about was it a communist society?
I mean, China is communism. It's not. They have so less freedom. They don't have like the freedom of choice that much. Communism is basically like everyone gets paid the same. Everyone is equal. Like, so doctors get paid the same as a garbage collector. But then this also means that, when people sometimes work hard to get promotions to achieve results. People don't necessarily do that in a communist society because there's no opportunity to grow. No matter how hard they work, they're gonna get paid the same as the next person.
So there's no motivation to do.
Yeah, exactly. So communist society is not necessarily the best society. It has advantages, I'm sure, and also there's like less freedom of choice. So I don't think there'd be, if you go to the United States, there's so many brands, so many companies. But if you go to a communist country, all of them are labeled under the government. You don't have freedom of choice. If you have a problem with that brand, you have like nowhere else to go.
Right.
It seems like a dictatorship as much as a
Yeah, but it does have benefits, I'm sure. Like, I don't know them, but I'm sure there are. I mean,
less homeless.
Less homelessness, maybe, but we don't know. I've never been to China. I am not really educated on this matter to talk.
So solutions. What other solutions can we think of instead of killing half the population?
Yeah, so other methods. So, China has a single child policy. So, yeah, you can't have two kids or the other kid will be sent away.
I think that would lead to some sort of illegal trafficking. I was watching this series called Lela, and okay, spoiler alert, but they basically took away all the mixed raced kids. I mean, it's different than this, but they sold them to rich parents who couldn't procreate.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good solution, but then what happens to that kid?
Yeah, and also, have you seen What Happens to Monday? It's a sci-fi movie set in the future where there's overpopulation and there's not much resources to support everyone. They have a single child policy. So if you have twins or if you have triplets or if you have a second child, they'll all be taken away. And the government say that they're putting the child to eternal sleep, but they actually like kill them. Okay, so population growth is kind of defined as number of births, like minus the deaths. So instead of increasing the deaths, you can decrease the births to have a controlled population, right?
But then it's like, well, first of all, it's against like your rights to have children, and second of all,
right to live is the most basic like right. We're thinking about like killing half the population. This is a minor violation compared to that, don't you think? Even if you like think about making half the population infertile,
what if their lives are kind of at an end because they can't have children? Like, it's just upsetting.
Yeah, none of us said this is a good solution or a fair solution. It's a solution.
But it's a small sacrifice than dying.
Yeah, I think the China's single child policy, or like What Happens to Monday, the people in there, they just believe quality care for one child is better than bringing another life in and all living uncomfortably.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying uncomfortably, but basically in suffering.
Yeah, but also another thing is that only really poor countries will get hit by that because they need like a lot of children to kind of they need to have a lot of children to make sure one survives and like helps out with the bringing money in. So those kind of countries will suffer while the rich countries are kind of unaffected. So it's not really fair.
Because human resource is one of the most important things for developing a country.
What if each like highly developed country has like a small sector where they put fractions of their resources and then those get distributed to the poor countries? So it's like an
Would the rich countries really agree to that? Like, we live in a world of greed and power. It's not going to happen.
And yeah, but you're also thinking about like a one perfectly rich country and one perfectly poor country. But even the developed countries like the US or the UK, the homeless population is quite high.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I'm pretty sure they have more resources than you need. I mean, if you think about India, for example, I don't know, there's a water problem, like there's water scarcity, while in the UK there's like a lot of water. There's no problem for water running through the taps. Stuff that they don't need can just go to another country instead of just wasting it.
They can't just go. Like, imagine transporting like tons and tons of water. Like, how many resources that would take? Like, who would pay for that?
No, not the UK to India, but like countries around them.
Okay, so what you're saying is kind of like in the movie What Happened to Monday, where they kind of ration food, so each person gets a specific amount of food. So maybe the earth does have enough food and maybe it isn't stored or like distributed properly. Maybe one family overconsumes while another family kind of starves to death.
Yeah, like have you seen the amount of food that gets wasted? You just need to teach people to be more considerate. Just because your country has so much supply of food doesn't mean that you should just take it for granted.
I'm
Just
sure like
no wastage.
I'm
That's all I'm
sure they
saying.
don't buy the food intending to waste it. Sometimes
I
it's better to
know.
like throw the food away. Your stomach is not a dustbin. So if you don't want to eat anymore, throw it away.
I agree, but then it's you don't have to buy it. That's what I'm saying. It's like I think you know how much you're capable of eating. Just buy that much. You don't have to like buy the amount you need so it doesn't get spoiled
I think
before you
most
eat
people
it.
do that, Manasi, though.
They don't as much as other poor countries where there's scarcity. There's still a lot of wastage.
Instead of like letting people starve to death, why can't we give the expired food or best before, like the best before food to them, to the people like who really need it? But then my mom was like, if you really want, buy the food and give them. But that's not really the solution because no one's willing to buy the food and give them. So the expired food which you're gonna throw away, or the best before, like, because food which are just past the expiry date or just past the best before date, they're not exactly gone bad. I know like they need and they deserve good food, like fresh food, but that's not always gonna be possible.
Like you know in Hunger Games, how they're eating the food and then they're making themselves vomit so they can eat more. Like that thing, I don't know if people actually do it, like really rich people at parties and stuff. The amount of food that must be wasted on Instagram, and this girl who works at restaurants, she was talking about like the amount of food that she has to throw out every day. Like it's heaps and heaps. I don't think people are aware of, I don't think people who have the privilege of, you know, all these resources actually think about it that much. Like I think education, I know it's easier said than done, but educating people, making them aware of the consequences of their actions, and in cases like poorer countries, going there and educating them about safe sex, like you said, condoms, pills, that kind of thing. Even though it's expensive, it's a good thing because you're just making everyone aware of their actions and choices.
Yeah, I think another method to prevent overpopulation or like other subsequent problems can be like to provide more areas of success and more opportunity to improve in developing countries. And like I think addressing religion and conservative religion followers can also be helpful in the sense that Because they believe that contraception is against the will of God and procreation is a natural process because orgasms are a gift for God only to be enjoyed when procreation happens, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Maybe educating them to a point where they believe that was because at that point repopulating was necessary because the population was dwindling. It does not necessarily still matter because there's overpopulation. And
See, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I completely agree with what you're saying, but that is basically just, I don't know, liberating them. It's like, it's not the same as, I don't know, making someone convert their religion, because not atheism, but this is also a part of like a type of group, a type of religion that you're believing in liberal ideas. And you're basically like convincing them that, do you see what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
it's not the best option. Like
yeah,
none of
yeah.
these options are like fair options, but
Okay, so do you think that if like none of these kind of solutions, because they're only partly fair, they're not completely fair. So if we just leave them all and we just continue to do as we're doing, do you think that, well, the world does have a carrying kind of capacity. So if we just carry on, if we reach it, then won't people die off naturally and it will kind of the population will just stay at that number and it will work out naturally?
I think you're thinking
That's
about biology. It doesn't work like that. So if the carrying capacity is reached, which it probably has already, we won't all die off because of our technology. We will all suffer together for longer until all of us die off.
no, but I agree with Aisha, because if you see what's happening with COVID-19, like people are dying off. Like, we're not going to continue to grow and no one's going to die off. Like, once the quality of life gets bad, people are going to start to die off. If you think about people in
Yeah.
Syria, where there's so many wars, people are dying like every day. It's
Yeah.
survival of
Also,
fittest at the end.
yeah, like if people don't have enough food in
Yeah.
developing countries, the people who have the least money, they're going to die. People in
Yeah.
in developed countries, like, I don't know, resources for cancer treatment or, the chronic illnesses, is that the right word? They're going to
Yeah.
like get less and less, and people are going to die off that way.
That's
I think
not
it's
fair because that's just putting the lives of rich above the lives of poor, because you just think people are going to die off anyway. But who are the most vulnerable? The poor, the disadvantaged. So do you mean to say that we can't randomly kill off both the rich and the poor, but it's okay to kill off the poor like naturally because it happens naturally? I think for letting it happen naturally and letting only the poor die because that's natural, it's not really our fault, is a worst way to think about than if Thanos killed everyone randomly.
Yeah, it's not okay, but imagine Thanos's idea, like people in the movie, like people that are like in the prime of their lives and they're kind of fighting for other people, they all die.
So that's more fair, isn't it? It's not discriminating against factors, like using factors like wealth or race or, I don't know, health.
Okay, but that's like happening all at once. It's like a mass genocide, and it's kind of
How are people going to deal with it if the resourceful people die? Okay, forget about wealth. You know how you said, what if most of the doctors die? What if, I don't know, people who have skills, the people who won't be as useful to build a new civilization in a new world, stay? I mean, I'm sure they'll learn the skills.
When you randomly kill off the population, we might be set back for a few years. It might be uncomfortable, but the population will bounce back. The population will find replacements for the lives that are
okay.
lost.
Yeah, you said they'll bounce back, and it'll probably take like maybe a generation for it to bounce back. How long would you say a generation is? Like 30 years, maybe? So it's 30 years that will be bouncing back, and then there's only 20 more years until we're back at square one. So what was
Yeah,
even the point?
it's not the best option. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
I guess we come back to natural selection, survival of the fittest. No matter what we do, it's gonna happen.
He's gonna kill people off anyway, right? So is he just trying to, I don't know, make his conscience feel better by doing it randomly?
Yeah, because killing people off randomly is the fairest way to do in an unfair situation.
See, killing people itself is an unfair situation.
Yeah.
So when you're doing it, at least make a smart decision. If he's so, I don't know, if he believes what he's doing is right, might as well not do it in a way that might turn out to be foolish. Like, it's so unpredictable.
No,
Anything can
but
happen.
he knows what he has to do, but he doesn't want to like play God, as in be the
He's
judge.
playing God. He is playing God.
But he's doing it less so if he does it randomly than deciding each and every person based on like we said at the start, basing on their actions or their capabilities. That's like him deciding what's right for them. Where if it's random.
So basically, he's taking on a responsibility and just discarding half of that responsibility, saying that, oh, I can't deal with the burden of making this choice.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point, because Spider-Man dies.
The saddest
Does
part
he?
of the whole movie.
Spider-Man dies, whereas Star-Lord, he lives. He's the reason why, like, this.
No, Star-Lord dies.
Does he?
Yeah.
No way!
Yeah, he does.
Oh wait, I'm thinking of Endgame where he comes back. Well, yeah, I mean, he deserves to die. I mean, Star-Lord, it's because of him, like, the whole thing happened.
I'm sorry, no, you can't say that. Like, he was emotionally stressed. It's not like you can't blame him.
When you're a superhero, when you're a doctor, when you're like people of power, where you're holding people's lives in your hand, you can't afford to let your emotions get in the way of your plans.
He's a human. No humans are robots. They have emotions.
Yes.
Don't blame people because they can't deal properly with their trauma. Like, go through their trauma first and then complain about them.
Wait, what happened? Can someone explain it?
So basically, he was trying to pull off the gauntlet from Thanos' hand, and they were nearly succeeding in that, because once the gauntlet is off, Thanos.
Wait! You have to tell her the trauma first.
Yeah, it's fine. So once the gauntlet is off, like, you can, like, he can't kill half the population. His girlfriend died, okay, right at the point when they're like pulling that off.
Yeah.
And then so he reacts to it, and then basically it doesn't come off because of his reaction. And then he basically kills all the population. I mean, half the population.
Yeah, but like, okay, even so, like, maybe that was his fault. But also, like, Doctor Strange, right? He was the biggest fool of the whole movie, right? He can literally create portals to cut things off. He cut like the guy's hand off at the start when he was trying to reach in through the portal. So why couldn't he just cut Thanos's hand off? Like, he's so dumb.
I mean, I don't know about that, but I can only see like what this guy did. Aisha, you're saying go through the trauma first, but imagine a surgeon was operating on your parents, and then your parents died because they didn't operate properly because of their trauma. Would you still forgive the doctor?
I wouldn't forgive them, but that's because I will have my own trauma to deal with.
Exactly. So I'm dealing with the trauma. I'm dealing with the trauma that Spider-Man died. So do not blame me.
No. Oh my god.
Their imperfections can't come to the point where it sacrifices someone else's life.
Yeah. Like, when you're giving that position, you should know by yourself if you're strong enough to handle it. If you're not, and if you're going to put it at risk, you should back out if you know that that's who you are. It's like, your trauma is fine. Like, you have trauma. But if you think it's going to affect other people, then just come out of the equation.
Yeah. I'm sorry for whatever trauma that he went through. It's not excusable. You can't say, oh, he went through trauma. It's like kind of saying, oh, all the serial killers should kind of be let out because their upbringing was kind of really sad.
Yeah, like most serial killers, they have abusive parents. Basically, this one guy, his mom used to lock him in the basement, and he basically killed a bunch of people when he grew up. So you can't excuse him. Like, you could feel sorry for him maybe, but at the end of the day, he didn't deal with it.
Yeah, but that was like a purposeful thing.
If
okay,
he
yeah.
wasn't abused, he wouldn't have done it.
I mean, like, what the Star-Lord did, I understand him. He needed that moment of hesitation. He needed to process what happened, and that moment was enough for Thanos to like gain back power. But I'm saying, you're so powerful that you cannot afford it. I'm so sorry for you that you can't afford it, but you just cannot. That's the same with police officers. That's the same with doctors. That you can't afford to have biases. You can't afford to. Anyone else, it's fine.
Star-Lord, he's been given a gift, right? Like, I'm not saying it's like he's been given a power that other people don't have. So if he has this privilege, maybe he should give something back in return. Maybe he should, I don't know, sacrifice some of this freedom that people have to let their trauma affect them.
I think that is the concept of superheroes, though. That's like their whole job description.
Yeah. Oh, true.
But like, I agree with your point about society. Yeah.
I guess like what Asia said about pandemics and in the survival of the fittest. I don't know if Asia said that, Manasi said that, but either way, I think I agree with that because like according to history, like Earth survived I think 5 mass killings, mass extinctions event, kind of like the volcano eruption, and you know how dinosaurs became extinct. So maybe it'll happen again, and naturally at some point, and halving the population is kind of guaranteeing humans won't survive a natural mass extinction event because it's going to kill a certain number of people, but halving the population would mean even less people.
Yeah.
And I think like killing half the people, like it's not the answer. First of all, it's morally wrong, ethically wrong. I could die, my parents could die, or what if I live and when everyone around me dies? It's really bad. And also if you think about it in a scientific way in terms of evolution, it kind of puts us back a lot.
Yeah.
Because like there's not going to be a variety of genes to kind of pass on. And also because you know, when like you halve the population, you halve the number of different like, genes. So which means if a disease hit, there's less likely that there's going to be a gene to survive the disease. So all population, like everyone would die.
Yeah, it's basically like putting our world at more risk of dying out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably wouldn't happen, but
like there won't be any diversity, and that could just mean like it's not beneficial for coming recovering from that. And also, didn't you say, Asia, that he killed half of all living things?
Yeah.
Which means all of humans could survive and all of ants could die.
Oh my god.
Well, it is random. Like with 7 billion people, 7 billion people, and then like even more animals and whatever like the population of animals are. If it's random, it's gonna come more to like.
You should do like half of each species, maybe. I don't know.
Half of each species. So what if a species which are like really endangered has only 2 animals?
Would you? Okay, if you had a choice between doing what Thanos did and letting things just take the course that they are right now without any change, what would you choose?
So however uncomfortable we're facing it together. I don't believe killing is the option. We leave no man behind.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but that's easy for us to say because
we're comfortable.
We're very comfortable, and other people. It's just sad how your destiny is just decided by luck. Like you just
genetic luck. I mean, there's a Hindu belief that it's not based on luck. It's based on your sins, and the Hindu belief is that you have 7 different lives, and your next life is determined by your actions in your previous life.
It's a nice thought, you know, like if that were the case, yeah, I like that idea that you've been given something based on how hard you work or how.
But okay, so this was another major point, right? You know the 50 years thing, that the theory that Thanos just gives people 50. I mean, the world 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
What if this 50 years was necessary for the ecosystem to replenish itself? Because we all know fossil fuels need time to recover, water needs time to recover. Like, these are all there.
Yeah, but fossil fuels are like more than 50 years. 50 years is such a small amount of
But
time.
it's
And even if they do replenish, they're going to die out eventually anyway again.
but if you think about it, 50 years is probably enough time. You know how the Amazon forest is kind of being cut down a lot at a really fast rate. What if 50
Yeah.
years is enough to like regrow it to an enough?
It's not though. Trees take hundreds of years to grow to their full height.
Yeah, but 50 years would give them a buffer. You're giving them a buffer. And also the ozone layer. You give them 50 years break, it's gonna like
And it's
repair
not
itself a little
50
bit.
it's not 50 years break, because the people that live here now, the half that are left, they're going to still utilize those resources. They're going to use all the resources still.
Yeah,
It's
but
just
not at
there's
the
more
rate.
to go around.
Not at the rate as how like an entire.
No, they will. They will. Like, they will use the earth to its absolute capacity, because that's how greedy we are.
But this is hypothetical. I mean, all of this is hypothetical, I guess. But that's one situation. But what if they're not as greedy? Or what if, like Manasi said, we selectively choose people who are best suited to live in a community peacefully, coexisting?
See, there's never going to be a perfect world. The only objective is to like make sure you having the least amount of damage possible, least amount of tragedies.
Yeah, how are we gonna achieve that?
I don't know.
Don't ask us. If that was discovered or thought of, then we would have no problem.
And his ultimate goal is that he just thinks, correct me if I'm wrong, Asia, he has his goal that after killing, he just wants to see the sun rise in a grateful universe.
What's his gift again? Like, to solve this problem?
I don't know what his gift is. He's really strong.
So if he's really strong, can't he strongly think about other solutions?
Oh my god.
Pretty sure he's smart, right? So why is he going for the what?
Oh my god! Use my muscles to think of a solution.
Like, he's just okay. He's in pain. Okay, that's fine. He just seems lazy at this point. Like, why aren't you thinking about more complicated solutions? It's just the first thing that comes to your mind. Fine, you know, you're just gonna have a trial run on a bunch of people without knowing the consequences.
Okay, can I tell you this, Manasi? Even if he didn't think of a solution, all the people in the universe, think about all the people in the universe, right? Have not even one of them thought of other solutions? People have. None of the other solutions is as powerful or as effective as killing off half the population. All like right now, we have so many laws on protecting certain fish in the ocean, and protecting forests, protecting certain animals. We have all this.
Okay, I'm just gonna act like Thanos, okay? I'm Thanos, and I think what I think is right, and I think Thanos is wrong. What you guys say doesn't matter, because this is a democracy.
Okay.
I'm just kidding, okay? I think Thanos was just put in a really bad situation here. Like, I feel bad for him, and anyone put in this situation cannot act in the most perfect way possible. Like, they're going to make mistakes. People are going to disagree with them.
Okay, so Thanos, he basically thinks of himself as like this inevitable, like, mass destruction thing, like an instrument of mass destruction. And he's like, he says it's inevitable because, you know, like, the world is going to die anyway, or because his willpower is so strong. But like, it doesn't have to be inevitable. Like, we can kind of mold, well, not mold, but like, we can adapt, and we can, like Niv said, we can go through this together, and we can, well, we don't know if we can get through it, but we can try.
Thanks for listening. You can follow us at Reasoning with Prejudice on Instagram. You can also listen to us via Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Red Circle, and Radio Public. Stay tuned for our next topic. Is ignorance truly bliss? In this topic, we will go on to discuss whether the lack of knowledge leads to naive happiness. You have been listening to Reasoning with Prejudice with Manasi
And Nev.
And Asia.
And that's a wrap. Okay.